Good morning. Welcome to your Friday morning, early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, a practical rebel, and waiting for my crowd to join me here who are other practical rebels. And I'm a little sneezy today. I think it's getting warm enough. Things are starting to do their thing, and so I'm kind of stuffy today. We'll see how that turns out as it warms up the rest of today. Today we have Taking the War Out of Our Words, the Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication. Good morning to whomever just popped on. Welcome, welcome. It is Peggy. Glad you were here. Good morning. By Sharon Ellison, and we've been working our way methodically through this book a little chunk at a time. And I like doing it a little chunk at a time. Actually, this is the first book I think I've done this with to this extent. There have been times when we've done the Tosha Silver book and I've just picked one of the little chapters to read, but I believe this is the first time that I've ever kind of gone through a whole book with all of you. So, and it seems like it's been very helpful connecting on these difficult topics. How do we talk about stuff without getting defensive and without provoking defensiveness in another person? Welcome to the other two of you who have popped on. I can't see your names, but I'm glad you're here. So we will continue with our chapter. And we had just finished the part about making predictions, and we're talking about the benefits, the function, etc. of predictions and how they help us. So this part is actually about how stating a prediction sets clear boundaries. Good morning, Lucy. And most of us women of a certain age need practice at setting boundaries. It wasn't something we were trained. We were trained to be nice. And in the process of being nice, we kind of gave ourselves away. So time to reclaim ourselves and set some good boundaries. Good morning, good morning. Glad you're all here. So we are on page, for those of you who have the book and want to follow along, we are on page 173. The chapter is called The Prediction. And we're going to be talking now about how stating a prediction creates boundaries that are beneficial to ourselves and beneficial to the other person. And the key word there is accountability, because this is where we break agreement with being victims. This is where we say, I'm not willing to be a victim anymore. Good morning, Cindy. Glad you are here. I think you're going to like this part. So page 173, down at the bottom, creating clear boundaries. When we predict for another person how we will respond to opposing choices he or she might make, we essentially define our own boundaries. Recall Dick, the orthopedist who felt defensive when another physician, with inadequate prior knowledge, questioned his medical decision. Irritated with the physician's habit of second-guessing, Dick finally said to him, "If you sincerely want to know about the factors I considered in making this decision, I'll be glad to tell you. If you just want to tell me you disagree, I'd rather not discuss it until you've studied the options I've reviewed." How about that? Yes, no more drama triangle. Hello, Renee. Glad you are here. So he's setting out very clear boundaries. If this, then that, and if this, then that. Because remember, we want to state both sides of the options available. And if there are more than two options, you would state all of the outcomes that you're going to enact depending on what the person decides to do. Afterward, Dick felt great. He did not refuse to discuss the issue, but he set clear boundaries. Even with firmly established boundaries, a prediction is still a two-way interaction, because whichever side of the boundary line the other person chooses will determine how we respond. If the other physician was critical of Dick's decision, Dick would refuse to discuss it until his colleague had done some research. If the colleague showed an open mind, Dick would discuss his decision. Pretty clear, right? It's laying out exactly. Then the onus is on us. Again, the accountability. Do I follow through on the predictions I've made? And as I've said previously, if you're going to make a prediction, follow through. You totally shoot yourself in the foot if you do not. As I've said to parents for years of coaching parents, do not state something that you're going to do if you are not going to follow through. If you don't sit down, I'm going to, and then you just sit there. Totally ineffective. Totally ineffective. You're better off not making the comment unless you are going to follow through. All right? Okay, so establishing boundaries in this way is often called limit setting, especially when it's used by parents with their children. What Dick did is in setting a limit with a critical colleague is more unusual. Yes, we do feel uncomfortable setting limits for adults, but don't assume every adult has learned limits in their growing up years. Many of us resist setting limits with other adults. We think people should know how to cooperate by the time they are grown up. Ha ha ha. I believe this assumption is unfortunate because limit setting is an effective way to create the boundaries necessary to any healthy personal or professional relationship. So now she's going to talk about how this kind of extricates us from, and there's some things popping up. I'll get rid of them after the fact. I hate when they intrude on what we're doing here. We got important stuff to do. We ain't got time for that. This part is called separation, and it's how do we extricate ourselves from those tar baby relationships where we're getting all gummed up with someone else's yuck. All right? So that's what this part is about. Perk up your ears, see what part of this is meant to chime for you. When we use a non-defensive prediction to establish our boundaries, we simultaneously separate ourselves from the other person. We become less enmeshed. Rather than allowing the other person's actions to dominate what we experience. We also respect that person's right to make independent choices, even if we believe they're poor choices, all right? Being comfortable with this level of separation may be hard because it requires that we consciously recognize and accept that we may not get precisely what we want. If you tell your partner that you will drive your own car to social events if he's not ready on time, he may continue to be chronically late. Although driving your own car will resolve your stress about arriving late, the solution may not feel totally satisfactory if you strongly prefer to drive together. Good morning, Linda. So be it, right? On the other hand, we do not necessarily get exactly what we want when we are defensive either. In fact, probably less so. But we start out with the illusion that we can get it by trying to control the other person. That is a hell of an illusion, isn't it? It really does a number on us. It does a number on that other person. It damages that relationship, personal, professional, whatever it is, okay? The most any non-defensive prediction can do is create boundaries that give us the best protection possible without dictating the other person's choices. And you might stomp your feet and go, yeah, but I want them to do. Ain't gonna work. You can keep stomping, but all you're gonna get is sore feet. Just saying. Rather than experiencing a loss of power after making a non-defensive prediction, many people feel much more empowered because they can solve a problem for themselves rather than being dependent on gaining the other person's cooperation. You're taking back your power. You're taking back your power. Your sovereignty, your authority for you. Okay? Doug knew how to stop conversations with Virginia when she didn't listen to him. Since he no longer fumed at the result of her constant interruptions, his mood improved greatly, as did his blood pressure. When we define our boundaries, we separate ourselves from the other person and create more freedom of choice for both of us. And I like that word choice. And I think in your predictions, using choose is a really good decision, is a really good choice. So if you say to the other person, if you choose plan A, I will do this. If you choose plan B, I will choose this. Putting the word choose in there, I think, is really helpful because it spells out that the other person is going to make their own decision and then you're going to make your own decision. Again, it also kind of creates that separation. We're not glued together in some unhealthy way. All right? Let's see. A healthy sense of separation can relieve us from guilt and anger. The relationship is likely to improve even if the other person does not immediately change some offensive or hurtful behavior. Carolyn felt an ongoing frustration because her mother, Rose, constantly complained that she didn't do enough for her. She emotionally spun around in cycles of guilt and anger. Finally, along with the conversation in depth with Rose about their relationship, Carolyn made a prediction. If you are dissatisfied with how much I do to help you, I will enjoy our time together less. If you are appreciative, I will enjoy it so much more. I also believe if you appreciate my efforts, you will enjoy our time together more also. Good morning, Mel. Glad you're here. We are doing the creating of boundaries through prediction. Carolyn said she felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders after she had made these predictions for her mother. She no longer felt that she had to constantly prove herself. She no longer felt responsible if Rose complained and chose not to appreciate her in that moment. Her prediction gave her the degree of separateness she needed to stay out of power struggle and guilt. How lovely does that sound? Carolyn began to enjoy the positive moments with her mother, even before Rose made fundamental changes in her attitude. Setting clear boundaries can eliminate guilt and anger. How cool is that? This next little section I really want us to spend some time with because it's accountability. And many of us, when we hear that word, go, ugh. Accountability is an empowering thing. When we are accountable for our choices, it opens up all manner of doors. And I'll give you one of my examples that I've trotted out here before. But when my kids were younger, Logan was probably 9, Lauren was probably 7, came home from work one day. It had been a long day, and walked in the back door, and there's a mound of books and backpacks and shoes and coats, and I couldn't even get in the door. So I lost my cool, and I yelled, "Whose crap is this?" And Logan from the other room said, "That'd be me." Took all the steam right out of it. He owned it. He was accountable. It was wonderful. It's like, okay, well, come and get your stuff out of my way so I can get in the door. So he did. No big hairy deal. But the fact that he owned it, which is pretty cool for a 9-year-old, the fact that he owned it allowed me to release that anger and just get the problem solved and move on. All right? So this is accountability. This is the cherry on top of this Sunday we're talking about today. Many of us know someone who shows us disrespect in some way. Whether we try to convince such a person to be more respectful or just say nothing, we typically do not hold ourselves accountable for the results. We see ourselves as abused victims and fail to recognize that the looseness of our personal boundaries may encourage others to mistreat us. But once we begin to verbalize accurate predictions for others, we act in a way that holds both ourselves and others more accountable. In professional relationships, people often set aside their own professional expertise in order to follow the adage, "the customer is always right." Don, the owner of a printing company, would acquiesce to his customer's wish if they didn't accept his advice, then be upset when they didn't like the results. Okay? When he subsequently complained that you just can't satisfy people, he was not taking responsibility for his own part in the problem. Don decided to take more responsibility by making clear predictions for his customers regarding the probable consequences of their choices. If you use too many colors, then based on my experience, this logo will be less crisp and you will be not satisfied with the outcome. If you use fewer colors, it will be more crisp and I think you will be pleased. Pretty clear prediction of outcomes, right? As a result, they were much less likely to blame him if the results were unsatisfactory. They had made a choice. And an increasing number of people responded by taking his advice from the beginning. Because my guess is it was much more clear that he was stating advice. He was giving his opinion, his professional opinion, than if he just kind of mumbled something about, "I don't think you're going to be happy with that." He's being very clear, all right? In our personal relationships, we sometimes put up with behavior we don't like until we get so frustrated that we withdraw from the relationship. That's the "I filed for divorce because he leaves the cap off the toothpaste" thing, all right? Death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? We need to address this stuff. One of the things that I've told people over the years is err on the side of feeling petty. when something comes up and it grates on you, and you go, yeah, but that's such a little deal. Speak up about it. Err on the side of feeling petty, because it's going to become a big, hairy deal. All right? You may remember Regina, who was resentful of Carla's pressure to get together during a hectic week. Regina complained about Carla to others and thought about withdrawing from the friendship. She felt victimized and reluctant to admit that she participated in creating her problem by caving into Carla when Carla wanted to see her at inconvenient times. Own responsibility for your choice. Own responsibility for your part in this thing not going well. When instead of withdrawing, Regina got up the courage to make the following prediction, she held both herself and Carla more accountable. If you remain dead silent when I say I don't have time to get together, then I give in and make time. I end up resenting it, and I feel less like seeing you. Here, Regina included 3 consequences in the same sentence: giving in to see Carla, resenting it, and feeling less like seeing her in the future. She also predicted conversely. Remember, we want to do both parts of it. If you can accept it when I say I'm too busy for coffee this week, then I will feel more like seeing you another time. Regina also held Carla more responsible for her entrapping silence. Carla acted huffy and hurt. She did not call Regina again. When Regina realized that Carla's withdrawal demonstrated Carla's unwillingness to respect her time constraints, she found it less difficult to let go of the relationship. Later, she realized she had habitually done much more for Carla than Carla had done for her. Sometimes we hang on to relationships because we don't want to hurt the other person or lose certain limited benefits. That's called settling, people. That is called settling. Are you willing to settle for breadcrumbs when you could have the whole loaf? All right? Why are you willing to put up with being treated less than you deserve? After we have set respectful limits, the other person, unwilling to be understanding or accountable, may make the choice to withdraw. Not really a loss. Not really much of a loss. We may still grieve, but not really much of a loss. And typically what we're grieving there is not the actual loss of that relationship, but the loss of what we thought it could be. The loss of the picture we had painted in our minds of what this person could be. Okay? I'm trying to remember where that was. Oh, I think it... Have any of you ever read the Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum series? There's a part in there where, and I'm thinking about it, there's a part in Harry Potter too, where in Stephanie Plum, where Lula has a new boyfriend, and she's trying to make the silk purse out of the sow's ear, and she's constantly making excuses for his boorish behavior, etc. And in Harry Potter, the same thing happens with, is it Grop? I think his name is Grop, the giant brother of Hagrid. And Hagrid makes excuses for Grop's crappy behavior. So we have examples of this all over the place. We want to stop doing that. We want to allow it to be the reality of what it is. Yep, this guy behaves in a boorish manner. Can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Let's see. Sometimes people are afraid to set clear limits for this very reason, out of fear that their counterpart may be unwilling to be accountable and may therefore decide to leave the relationship. When, in order to keep a relationship going, we neglect to set protective boundaries, we lose our self-esteem and suffer increasingly as the other person's victim. We've created our own victimhood there. We are complicit with being victimized. We are saying it's okay for you to treat me like crap, all right? And is it hard to set these boundaries? Absolutely. And do we grieve when we lose a relationship? Yes. But in the long run, are we ever going to serve ourselves by sucking it up and being willing to be treated like crap? No. Okay. Sharon says, I believe everything is progressive. The more we fail to set clear limits, the more abusively we will be treated. And we certainly see that in battering relationships. Okay, so he shoves you once. Then all of a sudden he slams you into a wall. And then all of a sudden he's hitting you around the head and neck. You know, it escalates, right? And oftentimes difficult to set these boundaries. And when I've helped people leave abusive relationships, we do so very methodically. We have a plan, and we execute that plan as quickly as we can once it's all formed. But we try not to do it in a half-assed way because it's so dangerous when someone's leaving. Good morning, Susan. Glad you are here. So let's see where we go here. We may still lose the relationship no matter how much crap we put up with. If a person is a partner, someone better might come along. Perhaps someone who still has some self-respect left. In this case, we lose either way because we hold neither ourselves nor the other person accountable for how we are treated. When we hold both ourselves and the other person more accountable for our respective contributions to a destructive conflict, we must be willing to focus on and struggle with issues that affect our own growth. We can't simply blame the other person for the problem. So here's Marcus and Sally again. Remember, we had talked about them previously. Marcus and Sally had come a long way in dealing with both his resistance to talking about upsetting issues and her drive to make him talk. But changing their habitual patterns still took time. Sometimes when Marcus became disturbed and withdrew automatically, Sally said, "If you want to tell me what is going on, I would like to hear it. If not, I don't want to force you to try to talk to me." And she says, this prediction does not have what we might call teeth. To some, it might appear Sally was just giving him what he wanted. I believe, however, that she gave Marcus accountability for deciding whether he wanted to talk or not. If he chose not to talk, instead of being sidetracked by an argument, he would be left alone to reflect on and deal with his own mood. So, going back to what she said, we could tweak it a little bit. She said, "If you want to tell me what's going on, I would like to hear it. If not, I don't want to force you to try to talk to me." We could add a little more on there. But I'm uncomfortable knowing that you're silent, so I may decide to go for a drive to get myself out of this uncomfortable situation. Spell it out. Spell it out. Okay, let's see. By predicting that she would not try to pressure Marcus into talking, Sally became more accountable for her own behavior. Yes, yes, yes. Less tears and the heart heals. Absolutely. This was difficult for her, as it is for many of the people in these examples. She really had to work with her own emotions and thoughts in order to let go of trying to induce Marcus to open up. She knew her prediction would not be genuine if she did not focus on his right to make whatever choice he wanted. Sometimes she had to go for a walk or find another activity in order to take her focus off of his mood. Good morning, Beth. Glad you're here. So yes, and we may state that. I may need to go for a drive just to get out of the uncomfortable situation. I may need to go out for coffee with Jane just to have a break from this. Put it out there. Put it out there. In each of these cases, the person making the prediction first held himself or herself accountable for making clear predictions and following through on them. When we do this, holding the other person accountable seems to follow more naturally. So the priority is, good morning, Beth, or Barb, sorry. Why do I keep calling you Beth? I don't know. Anywho, because I just said hi to Beth, probably. When we make the clear prediction, when we put both ends on that prediction, or multiple ends on that prediction, it makes it abundantly clear to the other person what's likely to happen. Sometimes, if they have their own manipulative streak, they may up the ante. So let's say in the Marcus Sally case, she added on that extra piece. If you choose, let me go back and find the sentence exactly, and we'll go from there, because I think this might be helpful. If you want to tell me what is going on, I would like to hear it. If not, I don't want to force you to try to talk to me. But it's uncomfortable being around you when you're silent, so I may take myself for a drive just to get out of here for a bit. He may then step into manipulation because he doesn't want her to leave. Maybe he wants to keep her in the loop of that discomfort. And he may say, well, if you're going to take off, I'm going to take off too. She then could make another prediction. If you take off and you're home at supper time, then we'll have supper together. If you choose not to come back by supper time, I'll fix a meal for myself. Just lay it out there flat. I won't come back. Okay? If you choose not to come back, I'll be upset about that, but I'll just lock the door and go to bed. And when you come back, we can have a conversation about it. I don't want to talk about it. Understood, but I'm not willing to continue this relationship if we can't converse about what's going on between us. She may get to the point where she has to set that boundary. Then again, set the boundary, but you must follow through. If you're not willing to follow through, don't set that boundary, because then you're playing the game. You're up in the ante, okay? So we want to state the prediction in a way that sets out the clear boundaries. If you choose this, then I will choose that. If you choose that, then I will choose this. Lay it out clearly, again, as calmly as possible. Sometimes that takes effort. May take a trip to the bathroom to breathe into the mirror for a bit before you go back and lay that out. But it creates the clear boundaries, and it gives you that separation so that you're not stuck to that tar baby, and it holds you accountable for how you're allowing someone else to treat you, and holds that other person accountable for how they're treating you. Hopefully that makes sense. If you've got some other ideas rolling around in your head in terms of ways that you could say those things, if you choose this, then, if you choose that, then, put them in there. The more verbiage that we have, the better. Oftentimes when I'm reading about new techniques or hearing how someone addressed something, they say, well, I told him what I thought. That's not the same thing as what words did you use to tell him what you thought, because then we can memorize a sentence stem. If you choose blank, all I have to memorize then is if you choose, and I've got the pattern down. Okay, if you choose this, then that. If you choose that, then this. Once I have the pattern, when I'm in the intense situation and emotions might be heightened, I've practiced it enough that it may come forward pretty easily. Or I may have to, again, take that break, that little time out, go look at my 3x5 card, and then come back and go, okay, if this, then that, blah, blah. So homework is going to be practicing, setting some predictions out there, setting some predictions that do indeed set clear boundaries and hold you accountable for your choices. All right? Yes, listen again to get more clarity. That's a great idea. And practice. Pause it. So when I've given you the words that might be helpful, pause. Say them out loud yourself. Get the muscle memory of what is this like to actually speak this. Or if the words are, well, that's too flowery for me, or that's too blunt for me, or whatever, doctor them up. Pick out the words that are going to work best for you and memorize those. Have an awesome day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.